What's going on, everybody? And I hope you're enjoying your Saturday early afternoon so far. This is NYG Jeffy T85 here, and I'm going to bring some New York Mets news and some New York Mets happening down at the first couple of days of spring training. As we all know, the New York Mets pitchers and catchers have all arrived to spring training. Each one of them have arrived a couple of days ago. Pitchers and catchers, the positional players will be on their way very soon. But right now, the New York Mets are letting some of these pitchers, some of these bullpen guys, some of these starting pitchers like Justin Verlander, Jose Quintana, Max Scherzer, letting these guys go out there, throw some early bullpen sessions, some early BP, just letting them go out there, loosen up their arms, get some throws out there, and pretty much get the baseball feeling coming back into them, and even trying to do some live batting practice that are going to be going on with some of the positional players when they eventually arrive. And a week from now, we will be able to start spring training baseball games for the New York Mets. Baseball is on the horizon, and oh, what a beautiful feeling it is. But some of the news and notes coming out of spring training. One of the things that actually is very interesting came from New York Mets star shortstop Francisco Lindor, who mentioned in his little press conference he talked about the World Baseball Classic and how excited he is about that. But something very interesting about what Francisco Lindor was dealing with in terms of an injury all last year, that he was pretty much playing the entire season last year with an appendix issue. He was pretty much dealing with appendix pain the entire 2022 season, and he was still able to go out there and have a very good productive season for the New York Mets overall, hitting over 20 home runs and driving in over 100 RBIs on the season, even while dealing with that type of pain. That shows the type of fortitude and the type of strength and the type of willpower that Lindor was going through all last season. So I appreciate hearing that from the New York Mets star shortstop, that he was dealing with pain in his appendix the entire season last year and still managed to go out there, play a majority of the baseball games last year, play over 140 games, and still end up putting up solid numbers while dealing with something as painful as that. And if anybody's ever had an appendix issue or had to deal with appendicitis, you know how difficult it is to be able to try to deal with any type of that pain. But playing through it in a baseball season, major contributions and major kudos to Francisco Lindor for the job that he did last year with the New York Mets, playing through that type of issue all season long. Some of other news that's going to be happening with the New York Mets. The New York Mets right now plan to keep David Peterson, Tyler McGill, Joey Lucchesi, and Alicia Hernandez stretched out as starters this upcoming season. A lot of it having to do with the fact that the New York Mets have a very older pitching staff right now. The youngest starting pitcher in this right now collective five looks like it's going to be Kodai Senga, who is 30 years old. You have to think about it. Jose Quintana is 34. Max Scherzer is 38. Justin Verlander is 40. And Carlos Carrasco is 35. The Mets have a lot of guys that are up there right now in age. So that means it makes sense why you'd have young guys like Peterson, McGill, Hernandez, and Lucchesi stretched out in case they need to come in and be reliable starters coming out of the bullpen, or even be like spot starters, because as we all know, you can never have enough starting pitching when you're going through this Major League Baseball season. So that's one thing that the New York Mets are going to be keeping a lookout for going forward. So I'm actually very excited about that and where the New York Mets might go in terms of this whole thing with, keeping those four guys specifically stretched out in case they have to come in during the season due to injuries or ineffective play and be able to come in and be starting pitchers for the team going forward. One interesting article that dropped yesterday was about San Diego Padres third baseman Manny Machado, where he pretty much said he's going to opt out of his deal after the 2023 Major League Baseball season concludes, and we know the New York Mets and owner Steve Cohen is not shy about spending whatever it takes to get his team to a World Series and eventually bringing a World Series back to Queens for the first time since 1986. So we know that the New York Mets are going to be just looking over that situation, maybe around the trade deadline, as well as looking at it potentially after the off season, or potentially in the off season. So that's one thing to definitely keep your eye on. A lot of it might have to do with how the New York Mets young players play during this spring training and during the season. Mark Vientos, Alex Ramirez, Ronnie Mauricio, Brett Beatty, Francisco Alvarez, how all these young players do, and potentially if they're going to be a chance to maybe make the Mets maybe think about bringing in a guy like Manny Machado next year if one of these guys ends up turning out to be a very good player with the New York Mets going into the 2023 season. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. Also, the New York Mets are saying, general manager of the New York Mets, Billy Eppler, is saying that outfielder Khalil Lee, who we all know unfortunately was dealing with a domestic violence incident last week, he's still being investigated right now by the court system on the whole issue, but he is reportedly expected to report to minor league camp on March 2nd with the New York Mets down over there in AAA Syracuse. So that's a very interesting thing as we go, and as the MLB continues to investigate this whole entire issue right now. But he's going to be pretty much with the team, with AAA Syracuse going forward into the 2023 season. We just have to wonder how long he's going to be with the team going forward. And then obviously another thing about Eduardo Escobar and his expectations going into the 2023 season. As we all know, he was a tale of two cities. I made this point when I made my video a little bit earlier on about the New York Mets and their infield positional group. Escobar was a tale of two cities. But right now, I think he's going into the season as the starting third baseman. Maybe Brett Beatty or Mark Vientos could potentially challenge him for that third base spot. But at the same time, I think that Escobar, who had a very strong end to his season after he struggled at the beginning, Escobar is one of those guys that can be a jack of all trades in terms of the way he can play every single infield position, but he's also a very underrated player and can be an underrated part of this offense going forward if Escobar is able to pretty much capitalize and play off his strong 2022 end of the season, go out there and just continue to do what he did and build off the end of his 2022 season and give the Mets another guy in the middle of that lineup that could be a power hitter, get on base, drive in runs, and be a consistent threat in the middle of that lineup going forward. And also, Jose Quintana, whom I just mentioned before, he wants to plan on going out there and anchoring the back end of that New York Mets starting rotation, which I believe he will. And he just pitched a bullpen session yesterday for the New York Mets and apparently looked very sharp during that bullpen session. He's more of a ground ball pitcher, left-handed guy from the other side. So he's going to give you that left-handed pitcher on the left side that's going to be able to generate a lot of ground balls. He's not going to blow you away with his stuff. Not going to be able to throw you away with 100-mile-per-hour pitches. Probably around the lower, the high 80s, low 90s. Maybe he could sometimes touch close to the mid-90s, but I doubt it. He's just going to try to get you to ground the ball to the infield and get out some of those quick plays to first base. So it's good to hear that the first bullpen session went very good for Jose Quintana, and I'm expecting him to be one of those guys that's going to be a player to anchor the back end of that New York Mets starting rotation going forward. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. But either way, that's some of your news and notes that has happened around New York Mets spring training so far in the first couple of days since the New York Mets got underway at spring training. The positional players should be arriving sometime by the weekend, early next week, and then the first spring training baseball games will be happening very soon. I will make sure to continue to give you guys updates on all the happenings around spring training surrounding the New York Mets as we get ready and we get closer to the 2023 Major League Baseball season that will be happening at the beginning of April. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your Saturday. If you like the video, hit the like button below and sub up to NYG Jeffy T85 for more news, updates, and chatter surrounding the New York Mets, and turn on the bell for notifications on the next video or short dropping on the channel surrounding the New York Mets. And let me know in the comment section what's your early looks and what you like so far from the New York Mets in terms of spring training so far this year. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Take it easy and let's go New York Mets. All you got to do is you got to believe in those boys from Queens.